Thank you for joining me for this special edition of Left Right Radio. We have a terrible story here in Massachusetts today. It happened, I think, 2 days ago. A career criminal held in office's killing as Yarmouth mourns. This is from the Boston Globe. Sean Gannon was a rising star in the Yarmouth Police Department. Young man, about 32 years old, sent with two other officers on Thursday afternoon to a quiet neighborhood to carry out an arrest warrant. Thomas Lanowich, career criminal with more than 100 cases to his name, a litany of charges for stabbings, drug, and gun offenses, was unwilling to go quietly. When Gannon, 32 years old, tried to apprehend Lanowich, chasing him into the attic of his Cape Cod home, Lanowich fatally shot the officer in the head, according to a law enforcement official. Court records show that Lanowich, 29, had been arrested repeatedly in recent years, including on charges of strangling a pregnant woman and stabbing a man at a traffic light. He was on probation for gun offenses, but he had largely avoided jail time since 2014. Now, look, first of all, this is an atrocity to see this young man murdered in cold blood. You know, with his wife, he leaves a wife. I don't know if he leaves children, he leaves parents. He was respected and admired in the community. He was a dedicated police officer. And this guy just shot him right in the head and killed him as he simply was trying to carry out his duty in terms of giving him a search warrant. Now, what is particularly awful about this is that it was so unnecessary. This guy had been a bad apple for years, probably go back to 2014. That's that's maybe even earlier than that, where he was repeatedly involved in violent crimes, as I mentioned, and this is according to the Boston Globe. And yet he's out on the street. We don't know which judge let him out. That's an interesting question. I had an off-the-record conversation about this yesterday with a public victim advocate. He's a state employee here in Massachusetts. Doesn't want to mention his name. Who's worked in several communities for local district judges or courts. And he told me that this is what it's like in just about every jurisdiction in Massachusetts, probably nationally to varying degrees, in that you have this small group of people committing the majority of violent crimes, and that it's a revolving door in terms of judges that continually let them out. There's leniency. It gets broomed, as they say in Massachusetts, swept under the rug. And that they continually commit violent acts against their fellow citizens. And ultimately, it could, leads to this tragedy, this atrocity. It's not a tragedy. It is a tragedy, but it didn't happen by accident. I mean, this guy was out there, with a loaded gun, a convicted criminal. Well, we have to see whether or not he was convicted, by the way. He might have just been let out by some liberal judge. And this is something that I think is a national epidemic. I think that this has everything to do with the case of the guy who shot, high school students in Parkland, Florida. He apparently had been brought up on charges, or police showed up at his door several times because he had been involved in violent instances. He was beating up his mother, and nothing was done. It was broomed, as I say, swept under the rug, which is why he was able to own guns. Same thing with this guy in Yarmouth on the Cape here in Massachusetts. Why did he have guns after being involved in violent crimes? The reason is because his cases were basically dismissed by judges and by district attorneys who didn't really want to get into it for some reason. And I would contend that this is a national problem. It's certainly a state problem here in Massachusetts. that we have a criminal justice system that is not functional. I mean, if there's one reason why you have a criminal justice system, it's not to, go out and harass people with tickets on their cars. It's to stop violence from occurring when possible against citizens, people who are disrupting the peace, who are tearing at the fabric of our society, people who are, acting out evilly and violating the rights of their fellow citizens in the most basic way, which is with physical violence. And, they just keep letting them out. What good are they? Why should we even bother, having courts or anything if they can't do this basic function of detaining these people, putting them away, getting them out of harm's way so that the rest of us can have a modicum of safety and peace. Now, an ultra-liberal friend of mine said, well, why don't we throw more money at it? The money is the problem. We need to spend more money on these poor people. By poor people, she wasn't talking about Officer Sean Gannon. I mean, even though everyone agrees, it's horrifying. But this guy that killed him. And, I would rather see, frankly, the money that it would cost. And already he's probably costing our system a lot of money. Already, I mean, I'd rather see it spent on positive things. When are you going to hire a social worker? I mean, the guy in Parkland, Florida had a social worker apparently, and the social worker heard him make comments that indicated that he was going to commit murder and never reported it. So what good is that? I mean, social work, psychiatry is going to help? I don't know. I mean, to my way of thinking, that just employs a lot of more people. And I'm really not all that sure that it's beneficial. Now, I'm not in favor of cruel and unusual punishment. I mean, it's not a matter of vengeance. And I do think our prisons could be improved and our prison system could be improved. For one thing, one basic improvement would be to deport illegal aliens in prison. And I don't know how many percentage, probably like 20%. I mean, I think the last count was done in 2014 and it was 15% of our prisoners are illegal aliens. What are they doing here? Why are we paying for them? Why are we supporting them? Not only did they violate our society by coming here illegally, but you'd think that if they came here illegally, they kind of keep a low profile, or at least they try to keep their nose clean. But if they go out and commit a violent crime, I mean, really, why would we even keep them in this country? I mean, they should be deported. And if no country will take them, and nobody wants them, then, yeah, I know this sounds like kind of an antiquated idea. And I remember the late radio talk show host Gene Burns used to talk about this, and I think it's interesting. You set up a prison colony, maybe up on one of the Aleutian Islands off the coast of Alaska, near the Arctic Circle, or some tiny speck of land in the middle of the Pacific Ocean that's not populated, and a desolate island. You put in a few facilities and you just send them there, let them spend the rest of their life there. I suppose in a way that's how Australia was founded. The British would send convicts. That's how the state of Georgia was founded. It was convicts. I don't think that's an unreasonable idea. I mean, if no nation will take these people, just get them out of harm's way, because this young man, Officer Sean Gannon, would be alive today had this person, this piece of human excrement, been taken off the street, so he couldn't have destroyed this man's life and killed him in cold blood. So, do I sound angry about it? Yeah. I mean, who isn't? Even liberals don't like this one. But, the problem is, again, our criminal justice system, and also the lack of solution to these kinds of evil people who are, by the way, as pointed out to me by this victims advocate officer, it's a small group of people who are committing the vast majority of these crimes, and they just continue to get out over and over again. It's like a revolving door. So anyway, those are my thoughts on that, and I just pray for Officer Gannon and his family in this terrible time. And let's hope that his death is not one that is in vain. but one that leads to genuine and authentic social change and social justice. Thanks so much for watching, everybody.